Hello out there in the YouTuberverse, it is Max, and I am back with you. Once again, we are going to play some Best-of-1 Constructed on Magic Arena. We're sneaking in here before War of the Spark comes out, so maybe if you're looking into videos, trying to see where the meta is going to fall, I'm going to give you some ideas, and we are going to Best-of-1 ranked Constructed with this Gruul Aggro deck. So let's take a look and see what we got here. Nothing great. 2 burn spells, not so much with the Doctor Ordered, and a set of uncastable spells over here. So we're going to go ahead and mulligan that. And this looks a little bit better, so we are going to go ahead and keep that. And hope that our 7th card is a good one. Collision Colossus. No, probably not quite high impact enough. Okay, we're against Mono Blue. Let's go ahead and pay 2 life to get this in. Let's go ahead and start off with a Pelt Collector. Now, the only way we really get punished for the Pelt Collector is if they go ahead and Curious Obsession, which it looks like they may do because they're hovering. But on a mulligan, hard to say that that's what they're going to lead off with, and we do need to put in some aggro here. We need to be able to keep up some damage with them. Okay, what's nice is the Harpooner here could be pretty darn good. Okay, and go ahead and Harpooner. Pretty hard for them to answer. They can Wizard's Retort, that's about all they can do here. Because we get to immediately put that ability on the stack. So there's not much they can do here. They can tap it, but that's about all they can do. And it lets us put in some good pressure. We can back it up with a removal spell. It should be pretty darn good. Now, the question is, do they Merfolk Trickster here? I'm kind of okay if they do it. They're answering a Pelt Collector. Not a big deal. So they're still just going to potentially trade or try to keep ahead in the race here. Not super concerned about it, because we are up a card here in terms of resources. So we'll see if, Jin is obviously a bad deal for us. It does not look like what they have. Problem is we're a little choked on red sources, so we can't double spell with these burn spells. So that's a little bit of a pain in the butt. But we do get to play around Spell Pierce specifically on this Merfolk Trickster. We go ahead and launch into attacks. Again, they can Merfolk Trickster here. We have a shock available to us. We could have played our land first, probably a little bit cleaner, just so we could answer a Spell Pierce. But it looks like that's not going to be a problem here. We will play a forest, and we'll pass the turn. Basically, we're counting on the shock to do a lot of work for us. If they Curious Obsession up their Merfolk Herald, or Mist-Cloaked Herald, excuse me, it's a Merfolk Herald. Who knows what that is? I will take 1 here, if that's all they're going to do. I don't really care about them charting a course. Okay. Certainly don't care about Stone Cold Nothing. Our hand a little anemic, but fairly reactive. Tempest Djinn is kind of what we're hoping to dodge here. Pretty much anything else out of this deck we can answer. Mono Blue is an interesting choice. It's all but disappeared from the meta after seeing a huge spike in popularity, of course, during the Mythic Championship. And just the ability to answer. I mean, these are cards that are relying on a lot of synergies to do something. They're not in particular fantastic. Blink of an Eye with Kicker. A couple options here. We can try to fizzle the Gruul Harpooner. We can then deny them a card. But I don't think that's quite good enough, so I'm just going to go ahead and let this resolve. What we don't want is them to chain together a couple things. It's going to be hard for them to do so, but we'll see what they have available to them. This fights any flyer that they put out, so I mean it's a dangerous spot to put it back to. This even takes down a Tempest Djinn, so it's kind of a dangerous spot for our opponent. Siren, Storm Tamer is fine. Now they're trying to set up a bit of a lock here, it looks like, but I'm going to go ahead and shock now while I can afford the spell, pay for the Spell Pierce. If they have a Wizard's Retort, they have a Wizard's Retort. But I want to try to take care of this as best I can now. Okay. And we'll end up being able to play our Gruul Harpooner here. Or the question is, do we go straight to Gruul Spellbreaker attack? Again, we get kind of blown out by the Storm Tamer if they Curious Obsession up the Mistcloaked Herald. So I want to take this out now to be able to cleanly answer any kind of tricks out of them. It also pumps our Pelt Collector. And they kind of knew this was coming. So as long as the last card isn't Tempest Djinn specifically, we're not too punished by this. But we shall see. Kind of slow rolling in here. And it's understandable you have to get the most out of your resources with this mono blue tempo deck. But what we want to do is try to keep our opponent off of cards. So the Lightning Strike will help if they do something like top deck a Curious Obsession. They have no choice but to try to spit it on their Herald. And we're going to try to answer it right now. I hope their last card isn't an answer. So if the Spell Pierce looks like it may be. Okay. So they were holding on to the Spell Pierce and managed to get there on the Curious Obsession. So they're going to have a bit of digging, which is a bit of a pain in the butt for us. And this is where Mono Blue synergizes so strongly, is it's a line of plays that we were hoping they weren't going to make. So the question is it better to let them hit us, get the card, and then try to take them out? I don't think so, because they still have 3 mana back for the Wizard's Retort, which they could have drawn. If that was Wizard's Retort, that would have been kind of fine either way. So the question is, do we go for Shock, or do we go for Gruul Spellbreaker? I think the answer is a pretty clean Shock here. Go ahead and try to do this right this moment, while they're low on resources, and 2 for 1 them here. It's really 2 for 2. Well, no, because they Spell Pierce 1 for 1, so yeah. That puts us ahead on cards. And again, we have the Spellbreaker for backup. Okay, the card we were trying to fade is out, but we get to come in potentially with more haste here. Rip. I think we want to go with haste, and I do think we want to serve with everything. This puts maximum pressure on the opponent. They do have to block to kill something, which is going to grow minimally one of our Pelt Collector. Well, only one of our Pelt Collectors is the same size, so it will grow our other Pelt Collector, allowing us to serve in for the same amount of damage next turn. So they have to be able to answer multiple 3X's in this spot. So what we don't want to see is, like, I don't know what we don't want to see here, because it's just going to, too hard for them to answer with 1 card. So there we go. Alright, now that I've kind of broken you in with a game, let's take a look at the deck and kind of show you what I'm working with here. Normally I do this at the top, but I got a little ahead of myself, so you can see kind of how it played out. We'll take a look at the deck list. 4 Pelt Collector, 3 Shock, 4 Growth Chamber Guardian, 3 Gruul Harpooner, 4 Zertog Goblin, 4 Lightning Strike, 2 Thrashing Brontodon, 4 Gruul Spellbreaker, 2 Collision Colossus, 4 Rekindling Phoenix, 4 Skargan Hellkite, 7 Mountain, 7 Forest, 4 Rootbound Crag, 4 Stomping Ground. Very simple, very low to the ground, looking to do some damage, looking to build an increasingly tough to deal with board. I think this deck's very good. I think it's got game against most of the Best-of-1 decks that are pretty decent. I think it doesn't strictly roll anything. There's nothing, and that's what I like about Standard right now, is there's nothing it feels like that just wins. Obviously, if there was something that just wins, it would have completely warped the metagame by now. Now, War of the Spark may change everything, but as of right now, we're kind of in this great place for some good quality standard. So this looks like a fine keep to me. It's got a decent mix. A little, like, I would have, of course, loved to see a 1-drop there, but you can't have it all, so we get to put the Stomping Ground intact. Not a big deal. And we'll play against the Anti-Pariah. Oh boy. Opponent checking out our dual land. Which one are they on? Okay, Mountain. Would make me think mono red, obviously. Oh, there you are, Pelt Collector. How are you? So if we are against mono red, which I'm going to hedge on, I'd rather lead on the Gruul Harpooner, because I'd rather be able to play the Growth Chamber Guardian a little bit later on, because I do feel like it's going to... Yeah, they got a Shock Burn and a hole in their pocket, so... Yep. Understandable. But that's why I didn't want to throw out the Growth Chamber Guardian, because that has so much more value later on. Okay, they are a blue-red deck. So let's go ahead and present a Pelt Collector and a Growth Chamber Guardian, which I do believe they will want to... See, the problem is, and I've encountered this before, if you use your multi-land last, you can't undo if you want to cancel the spell, so it's a little bit of a problem there. But I shouldn't be as wishy-washy while I'm playing. I should be able to I should make my plays more deliberately, and that's something hopefully everybody out there can learn, is you want to make your plays as deliberately as you can, because you don't want to second guess yourself, especially while you're like thinking about casting. But we see that all the time, right, on coverage, where people are flipping their cards, putting something down, they're picking it back up. I don't know, what am I going to do? That's kind of not how you want to approach Magic if you can help it. You want to try to be deliberate in your lines. You want to think your lines through. I think Tom Ross, the boss, is a great example of how to play methodical and deliberate Magic. He sits, he thinks, and then he plays his turn out. It's a very smart way to handle it, thinking about the turn as a whole, not just my first main phase, my combat step, my second main phase. What does all that change? And of course, things like that will change from time to time, but you do want to have an idea of what you're going into your entire turn with. And I think that's very important. Okay, so I think the next... Okay, that changes some things. I was going to say, I think the next step is a Gruul Spellbreaker. It still may be. Well, it'll be a 4/4... Yeah, I think it's just the Phoenix here. Well... So the question we're thinking about, the answer we're thinking about, the answer I'm thinking about is Lava Coil. Is because that will exile the Phoenix. It's a very easy way to deal with the Phoenix. Now, what the nice thing is, with the Gruul Spellbreaker is... I can play the Gruul Spellbreaker as a 4/4 to pump my Pelt Collector. So I think I'm going to do that, because it offers nearly as much pressure, and I'd rather have the Phoenix next turn. So let's break a spell. Put a 1/1 counter on this guy, so it's going to pump our Pelt Collectors. That lets a Pelt Collector get in, which is kind of what we want. We want things to go into the red zone. Now this is kind of maximum toughness on a Pelt Collector for us, or power and toughness, maximum stats. But we have a chance to get our other Pelt Collector there next turn with the Rekindling Phoenix. And yeah, this is a decent amount of pressure. Next turn we can really come at him hard. Like, I mean, you can see we're playing haste threats in our deck, so opponent's got to give some pause to that. Enigma Drake's a nice one. If they have a follow-up of something like a Lava Coil, they're actually in great shape. But I don't think they can afford an attack here. Okay. I think this is a pretty simple Rekindling Phoenix. I don't think these Drake decks tend to run creature answers in the main. I think they usually save their counterspells or something very light like Spell Pierces. I could be wrong. We could get Essence Scattered here. Okay. So now we have a lot of options. We get to send 3 creatures into the red zone here. Guilt-free. We don't have to worry about the Harpooner getting taken down. These are all... The odds on them double blocking become very poor, because they have to... Okay, they are going to go for the double block. So, yeah, one of those can go down. That's fine. They may have a trick, may have a dive down to keep something alive. This is where Arena's not the best, because it really doesn't show you the order of the other creatures. So it makes it kind of rough. Which one of these got damage first? And it looks like they are considering a dive down would be my guess, to try to keep their first Enigma Drake alive. But they're taking 8 damage to pull this play. So, yeah, and they're just... I'm not sure which one's ordered first, and I ordered them. I think it's this one right here. I'm pretty sure they're correct. Yeah, that was confusing, to say the least. And they did a nice job there, but they're going to need to add more Drakes to the board. They need another Drake to be able to soak up these 4/4s. But they also need a Drake plus a spell. So Discovery's a nice pull here if they can find themselves a land in a Crackling Drake, or just simply an Enigma Drake. One of those two plays quite nice. They're going to bump their Drakes to 4/4s. That means they don't have to worry about not trading in combat, and they put the board to parity this way. So good on them. Our turns are not flashy turns. Well, let's cancel this. So the option is we can try to churn and burn through the opponent, and I think that's the tactic here. Because the problem is, if you think about it now, right? Think about this from not just a losing, but trying to win standpoint. We're at 20, right? They have 12 power and toughness on the board. They have to work through a lot of threats. And now they have to work, again, they're at a point where I'm forcing them to come up with double spell. But if I just sat back on that turn, because it's like, oh, their blocks are pretty decent, I better sit back. They can play a couple spells and then potentially swing at me for lethal. They're 2 spells or 3 spells off of swinging. So if they go opt into some other cantrip, into even something irrelevant, they win the game on the spot. Well, not on the spot, because we could block with Phoenix, but I'd rather... We're in an aggro deck. We're trying to win the game. We're not trying not to lose the game, if that makes sense. And that's a very tough situation to assess, which is why I've been pushing so hard with this particular video to really, if you get nothing else out of it, because it's going to be, at this point, it's going to be an old standard video very quickly. I really hope you take away taking the turn as one entity. And I always try to jam some kind of thesis statement, right, into my videos, right? It's from a filmmaker, first and foremost, and a Magic player a long time, but like professional hobbyist at Magic. And my through line here is to make sure you think about your turn as a whole. Like, look at this hand, right? It's a little land heavy, but we have a turn 1, we have a turn 2, we have a turn 3. This is a reasonable line against multiple decks. The turn 2 play turns into a potential turn 3 play that pressures them, gives us additional plays. So I want to think my methods out. In Limited, you're often thinking about, is this playable? In Constructed, you want to have a plan going into it. And our plan's very simple. It's just to beat down. So this fits the mold. And it looks like we're going to play against mono red. I'm not playing my spells. Again, they may have a shock in their pocket. They don't appear to. Or at least aren't interested in a shock right here. Maybe they have a Fanatical Firebrand they'd rather use on our Pelt Collector. Runaway Steamkin, pretty simple. Again, I'm going to play the Zerta Goblin here. And I'd rather play it as a 3/3 because it's going to be more relevant next turn. That lets us attack him with Pelt Collector, which I don't think there's any chance they block this at all, because that would be insane. But, yeah, so that's... Oh, you want to take your turns nice and easy. The Zerta Goblin came out. We know we're now building towards a big Hellkite. We have plays in the middle. Sadly, our primary role in this is not dying, because our opponent is the aggro. They are the aggro. You always want to identify who's the beatdown, right? It always goes down to back to that old Mike Flores article, one of the best articles for any game, especially a 1v1 based game. You can read is who's the beatdown. And it's a serious question. Who's the beatdown? What's our role in this game? So I think our current best play is going to be Lightning Strike the Chain Whirler, because it's one of their best creatures. And I think swinging with both is acceptable. If they want to block the 2/2 with their 2/2, I think that's an extreme upside for us. Both our creatures do get bigger. But I think that the Steamkin has far more value, especially if they're trying to build towards something like an Experimental Frenzy. So our next turn will likely be the Spellbreaker. We'll see. The Growth Chamber Guardian at this late stage of the game I like to hold to activate. If I draw another 2-drop, however, that could change my mind. So we shall see. Okay, they're going to get a big old Steamkin here. This could be a turn where they're able to plug us for 4 and then whip right around an Experimental Frenzy, potentially. Because they could go, well, they could attack, then go maybe light up the stage, remove all their counters, go for Experimental Frenzy. They still have 4 cards in hand, so that's maybe a little farther away. But they're definitely going to whap us for some pretty heavy damage here. If they have another Shock or Wizard's Lightning, they may just throw it at our face. to come in for 9 damage here. And you can see just how quickly the mono red deck puts damage on. It is no joke. It looks like they're going to follow up here. Remove some counters from the Steamkin. Okay, they're adding 3 mana to their mana pool. Is this going to be a Frenzy? Looks like it might be a removal spell for a Goblin. Okay. Not a big deal. Not a small deal. Don't get me wrong, but not a big deal. Okay, what else do you got? Skewer the Critics for a face. That's kind of fine. What we're hoping to do here really is outclass this opponent as far as impactful spells. They have 3 creatures, and then one of them is a 4/4, so that's no joke. I think our best bet is to offer up a 4/4 blocker. And from here, they're in top deck mode. They have to do something impressive. One removal spell alone does not do it, unless they're playing like main deck Lava Coil. They have to do something pretty spectacular here to take out the Gruul Spellbreaker. So I'm interested to see what that is. I don't know if they'll apply pressure with the Steamkin here. Looks like they're going to go for the Steamkin. I'm going to go ahead and oblige to block the Steamkin. Next turn, hopefully if we draw a land, we can Growth Chamber Guardian or Giant Hellkite. That can kind of mow down their board. The Steamkin presents a lot of problems in that play, where the Hellkite kind of just solves all our problems. Yeah, this is going to be a beating. I think. Again, they could have something, but if we get to untap with this Hellkite, we get to immediately nuke a Lava Runner, and right now we get to unquestionably block a Lava Runner. So this is going to be very hard for our opponent to answer efficiently. We're at 8 life, so I mean it only takes a couple burn spells to get us, right? 2 to 3 burn spells. 1 attack with both their creatures, double burn spell. Absolutely gets us. Now we are also in the lucky bit of business where we can play another Hellkite and answer the board very quickly, but maybe they double spelled here. Like maybe they drew Skewer the Critics plus a Wizard's Lightning. Opponent definitely understanding and assessing their role in the match, so this could very easily be GG. It could also be just kill the Hellkite if they only have 1 spell in hand. Nope, they're going to go for a face. So opponent properly assessing the threat, I think. Yep, there you go. Close one. Had they not ripped spell, we definitely would have been all over it. Well, no reason not to run another one back, right? That's how we do. Like to get a few, and these are quick, so what's cool is I get to cram a bunch of games in for everybody. I like that. And we can kind of step through and you can kind of see and evaluate, do you think this deck's good, do you think this deck's not good. I kind of bodged it together from a couple lists. PV did a list of this deck, Day 9 did a list of this deck, and a couple other people posted public deck lists for this as well. And I wanted to just kind of toss around a version I thought was a good mix. I like the aggro version, but I like building towards something like a Hellkite, because you saw, right, if our opponent didn't spell, we could have maybe taken over that game and come very close in 1 to 2 turns winning the game. So, this deck is no joke, the amount of pressure it can apply. Mono blue again, huh? I am interested. So, the last time we were on the play, if I'm not mistaken, against mono blue. This time we're on the draw. We have an instant that can deal with the Siren Stormtamer. Now, what they could be trying to set up is Stormtamer... Yes, I'm aware, thank you. So Stormtamer, let's mute this opponent so I can do my thing. Stormtamer plus land plus Curious Obsession. So land, Spell Pierce on the Stormtamer, I think is a reason enough to go ahead and Colossus here. So I think that's what we're going to do. It's one of our more premium removal spells, so it kind of stings to use there, but the opponent can kind of get us if they have the creature. If they have the Curious Obsession plus Spell Pierce, we're just kind of dead to rights. So that's a little bit of a tough line to take, I think, but I mean, I can't see much getting much better than that. Now, the reason I want to play the Spellbreaker here, green, and the question is, do I want to play it as a 4/4? And I think the answer is most assuredly yes. because I do want it to be able to at least offer a trade with a Tempest Djinn. Opponent's going to opt here. And what's nice about this deck, too, against something like a Merfolk Trickster is, okay, my creatures have 1/1 counters on them. Like, alright, like if it's my turn, this creature gets hexproof, so they can't even Trickster it on my turn. See, there's the Curious Obsession. So the question will come later, and obviously it's not going to be perfect results, because they're going to have drawn cards since then. But it will come up to the, if they had Spell Pierce, will we have walked right into the Spell Pierce? Should we have played the Zerta Goblin and just started to try to beat them down, is the other side of the coin. So it's tough, but this deck requires a lot of synergies to be good, so it's a tough bit of business. No reason not to attack here. We have no fear of something hitting us. We're going to go ahead and play Zerta Goblin. +1/+1 counter there, and we're going to go ahead and play a Growth Chamber Guardian, and we will try to get him. If we have a Hellkite, that slows the roll down considerably. They have one spell in the yard, excuse me, so the odds of them turning on the Terramanders are low. I mean, obviously with drawing 2 cards a turn, things get a little better for them. But we're going to serve back here for potentially 9 damage. So, that's pretty good. Okay, they have the Tempest Djinn. Really needed the land there. So we are going to go ahead and serve with these 2 creatures. Neither one can really be blocked if they're going to go for the win. Okay. And we do have to commit different things to the board here. These double Hellkites would have been great. I think the window's kind of closing on us here. And now again, we get to crack back for a lot. Yeah, they have to be careful with this Tempest Djinn. I think their best line is to kind of keep the cards flowing for a little bit, hold up Wizard's Retorts. I think, honestly, they have to do nothing else to the board. I think this all comes down to counter magic from here. I'd be very surprised to see them cast anything that would tap them low. Honestly, I'm surprised right now, unless they play a follow-up land, that they tap that, because we want to see mana for that Wizard's Retort. They don't have a wizard on the board. Okay, they went for a flat-out another Tempest Djinn. So now we have to think. We have a Growth Chamber, a Spellbreaker, and a Zerta Goblin. This entire force, unblocked, can swing lethal. This is lethal damage we're talking about here. To unlethal it, however, they have to just simply block one of our Growth Chamber Guardians. So the question is another haste creature better? Now that gives them safe blocks. They can go block a 3/3, block a 3/3. They go 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and they still live. So I don't think we can afford to... They can block to try to take one off the board, and they know for sure one of their Tempest Djinns is safe. They're going for a full block on the Spellbreaker, huh? I don't think these are blocks you need to make. Well, we do have to evolve this one. It's going to be kind of a spending of mana that we don't want to make, but this is buying us quite a few more turns than I thought we had in this game. So we kind of have to just go for straight up removal, and we're cracking back in for 5. If they get cocky, we crack in for actual factual lethal here. So we'll see what opponent does, but I'm very surprised they went for the blocks they went for. I thought they would just block 1 for sure, but they have to be careful here. I mean, luckily for them, we can't punish them too badly here. Well, yeah, we can. Potentially. We can play through a Spell Pierce here, so that's pretty interesting stuff. Yeah, I think we have to go for the win here. So, we'll see what they do. Whatever they block, we will throw the collision on, and we'll see if we can beat... we can't beat Wizard's Retort, right? And odds of them having it are super high. But... yeah, and we don't necessarily have to go for it here. We can just kind of do this, right? Like, we can go for 3/3 blocks. We can go for turning this into a 4/4. And that may just be better. I think it is, actually. Because they can't kill us here. So we'll see. I mean, they could dive down. They did not. And again, remember, we're holding the Spellbreaker, we're holding this Collision Colossus. Collision Colossus is a little worse because it can't just flat out counter a spell. So we got a 3/3 and a 4 and a 2/2. Do they have the... what in the world is opponent doing? Could they not have just won? No, 2 and 4. No, they could not have just won there. Okay. Tempest Djinn. Okay, so they took the line they could take to try to win them the game, which is, you know, reasonable, right? We're trying to win the game. Okay, so we know they are glutted with we know they are glutted with counter spells, but they also tap down to 1. So all we have to do is not lose to a Wizard's Retort. So I'm going to attack and try to Collision Colossus for the win, because Spell Pierce doesn't do it. This should require a double block on their behalf, but this pushes over lethal damage here. So we play around Spell Pierce. They can dive down their creature to give it 4 additional toughness. So there you go. So it doesn't look like we can win, but so there was 2 options, right? If we had played the Zerta Goblin, we could have definitely tried that and hoped that they didn't have Counterspell, or we could have rushed at them the way we did, which I think was correct, and tried to play around dive. But at that point, they had just gained so many cards in hand, seeing 3 of their Curious Obsessions. And, I mean, basically double Curiousing since turn 3 or 4. That hard for us to come back. I'm impressed we did what we did, especially choked on mana the way we were. I mean, the Hellkites could have closed the door a little sooner, but we just didn't have the mana quickly enough. As a matter of fact, at all, for the whole game. So, they got 1-1 against Mono Blue. So let's jam in one more here. We'll crack in one more game. Kind of give us, that'll be 5. So that'll give us a fair, I think 5. Maybe I'm wrong. Who the heck knows? I'm just having a good time. But it'll give us a good little mini sample size so you can kind of make your evaluation of Mono Green. But I do want to emphasize the taking your time and really thinking the turn through. I think this is keepable. It's got 2 creatures. It's got a removal spell and a bigger creature we're building towards. I think that's good enough. I do think it's an on-the-cusp kind of hand. And I think we can definitely get punished against the right deck. So we'll see what we can do. Sadly, or I do believe we're on the play, if I remember correctly. So we should be in good shape there. That's a nice lead-on stomping ground, which is pretty good. Okay. And then the next turn we'll follow up with a Goblin. Most of the time I'm just all for making these 3/3s, because it's so rare you see a deck you want to run the haste against. But this may be the deck. I mean, Forest is kind of a crappy draw here. But we'll go ahead and we'll run out a 3/3 to begin with. And then next turn, if they just play like Island or tapped Shockland, and they're just like a blue-white control or a blue-black control, we will run out second Zerta Goblin and try to smash them for 5 of their life points. Looks like against another Drake's deck here. Probably a Lava Coil, based on the fact they were hovering over our Goblin. Another reason I like the 3/3s, it just makes Shocks not usable against this deck for the most part. And because the deck has such good late game, even your 2-drops, your Growth Chamber Guardians can kind of be set up to not have to worry about that kind of shenanigan. So for that reason, obviously, I will... okay, I'm going to play the Thrashing Brontodon, but... I would have played the Zerta Goblin again as a 3/3. I like the Collision Colossus against this particular deck. I like the Hellkite against this particular deck. We need another red source, but we'll see. Could, again, looks like they're hovering over both creatures. Could be another lava. Could be a Lava Coil. But I do like invalidating spells out of them, so I will try to make my creatures bigger than 2 toughness as frequently as I can. And we'll see how far that gets us. Could be an Enigma Drake here. Could be a removal spell. Again, opponents got 1 spell in the yard with that Chart a Course. They ditched a Mountain for their discard. They're charting a course again. Not a bad sign, but opponents got to do something. They're willing to take a lot of life points to set up here, so they really need something good. Next turn, the Drakes will start to flow, would be my guess. And we can answer the first one and be able to play a Zerta Goblin. What I'd love to draw some... Obviously, I mean, like, you know, the story of this game, I'd love to draw more spells. But if I draw a red source, I won't hate that. But I do really want to try to double spell in a turn if I can. Okay, they discarded Mountain. Yeah. See, that's kind of the problem here. I still have no interest in giving them a free shot with a shock. If they want to throw a shock away, they're going to have to throw it away at my face. That's just how that works. Because why give them the value of a 2/2 for 2 extra damage? That 2 damage, if they have a shock in hand, would not get through anyway. So I'd rather them hold the shock and just have to throw it at me for no huge value, as opposed to being able to trade for a full card out of it, which is not where I want to be. So if they tap out for, okay, they're going for Lava Coil. What? Okay. They really held on to that Lava Coil for a long time. They made Double Coil here? I'm fine with that. I didn't think we were going to make it out of that turn that effectively, but we did. Cool. We'll play another. It sets us up nicely. Collision Colossus pretty good. If they play a Crackling Drake here with the ability on the stack, we can Collision Colossus. We gotta be careful. Now they can spell Pierce, so that's a big deal. I will not play into the Pierce. There's no reason for me to. I will just simply tap Forest on my turn and play around the Pierce. Okay. No Pierce yet. This could be Enigma Drake. If they tap out for Enigma Drake and turn, obviously, I will throw down and kill their boy. And that lets me set up for a Lightning Strike plus 6 damage, which would be lethal. So my hope is that they tap out for Enigma Drake. If not, that makes things a little bit more complicated, but not a ton so. Yeah, opponent's just not finding anything. If they're just like Arc Light, they're just not finding it. Opponent's effectively dead here. All we have to do is untap attack and shoot them with Lightning Strike. And again, no value out of shock. Treasure map? What are we doing? Not sure what the treasure map's in there for. I'm not going to get flashy. I'm just going to attack. We'll try to... Okay, you can say this is slightly flashy, but what I'm doing is I'm layering my threats, because if they counter this or something happens, I can just Lightning Strike them down. But with 1 mana, the odds are so low. But I do want layered threats if I can help it, just to make sure that I don't give up what would be an easy win. So, there you go. That is mono, or not mono, it's mono nothing. That is Gruul Aggro. So again, I'll spit out the deck list for you down here. 4 Pelt Collector, 2 Shock, 4 Growth Chamber Guardian, 3 Crawl Harpooner, 4 Zertog Goblin, 4 Lightning Strike, 2 Thrashing Brontodon, 4 Gruul Spellbreaker, 2 Collision Colossus, 4 Rekindling Phoenix, 4 Skargan Hellkite, 7 Mountains Forest, 4 Stomping Ground, and Rootbound Crag. So pretty symmetrical mana. Our mana needs, sometimes there's probably the Thrashing Brontodon is the only thing with double green, so I'd love to cut down on that, but there's just so, in my opinion, there's so much enchantment based removal and things you want to deal with it. He's a nice flexible best-of-1 piece to have in your board. He still adds pressure. He does everything you want him to do pretty well, enough so that I think his 2 slot is warranted, but if War of the Spark puts something out that might be a little bit better for that slot, I have no problem switching it up, and obviously we have no idea what that's going to do for the metagame outside of adding a bajillion D Planeswalkers to the format. Anywho, that is Max here. Supraliminal Games, Supraliminal Entertainment, all that good stuff. You can find us online, where you're finding us now on YouTube, youtube.com/supraliminalfilms, twitch.tv/supraliminalfilms. We stream Arena every Sunday, and the second Saturday of every month we do a live paper stream of either a board game or Magic. I believe at the time of recording, the next one for May of 2019 will be Commander, and it will be Budget Commander, which is pretty cool. We're restricting ourselves to the Commander's Quarters $25 budget, and if you're a fan of that kind of thing, oh boy, it's hard to stick to that low of a budget. And other than that, you can find every single thing we do, podcasts, extras, everything, all the goodies over at supraliminalfilms.com. And until next time, cast more spells.